First contact fallout. The ship's alert system pulsed with a gentle amber glow as Admiral Soren Thorn stepped onto the bridge of the Confederation vessel, Inevitability. His scaled skin shimmered under the lights. Four-fingered hands clasped behind his back as he surveyed his crew. "Status report," he commanded, settling into his chair. "We've entered the Sol system, Admiral," replied Navigation Officer Prell. "Third planet shows signs of primitive technological civilization, as intelligence suggested. Pre-interstellar travel, but with rudimentary orbital capabilities." Thorne nodded. "Perfect. Begin standard subjugation protocol. Let's make this quick. I promised the matriarch I'd be home for the alignment festival." From her observation station, Science Officer Neria Voss looked up from her data screens. Unlike the militaristic members of the crew, her slender form and large, analytical eyes reflected her academic background. "Admiral, I've been studying their communication patterns," she said hesitantly. "There's something unusual about these humans." Thorne barely glanced in her direction. "Every species believes itself special. Officer Voss, 97 successful. Planetary acquisitions suggest otherwise." "I understand, sir, but their response to crisis situations shows remarkable." "Begin the demonstration," Thorne interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. The Inevitability positioned itself above the planet's largest military installation, a sprawling complex in a region the humans called Nevada. With surgical precision, the ship's quantum cannons disabled the facility's power and communications. Standard procedure: demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority, break their command structure, and wait for the inevitable surrender. "Demonstration complete," announced Weapons Officer Drax. "Minimal casualties is ordered." "They're global. Communications network is disrupted." Thorne smiled. "And now we wait. Typically takes about 6 local hours before their leadership attempts contact." Neria frowned at her console. "Sir, I'm detecting unusual communication patterns on frequencies we can target. Primitive radio technology, but it's spreading globally. Inconsequential," Thorne replied. "Prepare the landing party." 3 hours later, the bridge of the Inevitability was in chaos. "How did they breach our shields?" Thorne demanded, gripping his command chair as the ship shuddered. "That was a commercial aircraft." Neria's fingers flew across her console. "They loaded it with explosive materials and precisely targeted our ventilation systems. The shields are designed to repel energy weapons, not kamikaze attacks." "What is kamikaze?" Thorne snapped. "A historical Earth tactic. Sacrifice attacks. They're—" Neria looked up, her eyes wide. "They're adapting, sir." The ship rocked again. On the view screen, dozens of small craft, some military, some clearly civilian, swarmed toward them. "Impossible," whispered Communications Officer Yella. "I'm picking up transmissions. They've organized a global resistance in ours, using technologies we considered too primitive to monitor." Thorne's skin darkened with anger. "Launch fighters. Target their approaching vessels." "Sir," Neria insisted, "we need to reassess. These humans don't follow standard psychological patterns of conquered species. They're not centralizing their response. They're dispersing it. Every individual appears capable of independent strategic thinking." The ship shuddered again as another explosion rocked the hull. "We've lost Engine 3, reported engineering. And, sir, they're attempting to board us through the maintenance hatches." Thorne stared in disbelief. "How did they even locate the maintenance hatches?" "Our design isn't analogous to anything in their experience. They're problem solvers," Neria said quietly. "They observe, they adapt, they overcome. It's remarkable." The bridge doors hissed open. Security Chief Krev stumbled in, blood seeping from a wound in his shoulder. "Admiral," he gasped, "they've breached Deck 7. They're using our own weapons against us. A human female. She figured out how to operate our pulse rifles in minutes. Thorne stood, his proud posture finally faltering. Retreat. Full retreat. We need to warn the Confederation. As the inevitability struggled to break orbit, Neria continued monitoring the human communications. Admiral, she said, her voice filled with wonder and terror, they're already analyzing fragments from our damaged sections. They're sharing the technology globally, collaborating, learning. What kind of species does this? Thorne whispered. Neria met his gaze steadily. The kind we should never have threatened. Diplomatic disasters. Ambassador Kelter adjusted his ceremonial robes for the 5th time as the shuttle approached the neutral meeting location Luna Base, Alpha. The hastily constructed facility on Earth's moon represented an uncomfortable truth. Humans had gone from having barely reached their natural satellite to establishing a permanent base there in mere weeks. You're fidgeting again, observed Protocol Officer Senna, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the shuttle's interior lights. Not very ambassadorial. We're meeting with creatures who destroyed our flagship and reverse-engineered our technology. In days, Kelter replied testily. Forgive me if I'm somewhat anxious. The Science Directorate is still analyzing how they managed it, said Neria Voss, who had been reassigned from the inevitability to the diplomatic team due to her insights on human behavior. Their collaborative approach to problem-solving is unprecedented. They share information freely across their planet. The shuttle docked with a gentle shudder. Kelter took a deep breath, straightened his posture, and prepared to represent the Confederation to the most alarming species they had encountered in centuries. The human delegation waited in a simple but elegant meeting chamber. At their head stood Olivia Reyes, Earth's chosen diplomat, a woman with rich brown skin and keen, intelligent eyes that seemed to pierce through Kelter's practiced diplomatic veneer. Welcome to Luna Base Alpha, Ambassador, she said, extending her hand in what Neria had briefed was a customary greeting. I trust your journey was comfortable. Kelter hesitated before taking her hand, surprised by its warmth. Quite adequate, thank you. Though I admit, we didn't expect to be meeting on your moon so soon after our initial contact. Olivia's lips curved in what humans called a smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. We work quickly when motivated, Ambassador. Your fleet provided considerable motivation. The meeting proceeded with formal introductions and an exchange of basic diplomatic protocols. Kelter found himself increasingly unsettled by Olivia's approach, direct, occasionally humorous, and utterly lacking the deference he expected from a technologically inferior species. Let's address the quantum elephant in the room, Olivia said during a break in the formalities. Your Confederation attempted to conquer Earth. That puts us in a difficult starting position for peaceful relations. Kelter blinked his inner eyelids, in surprise at her frankness. The Confederation regrets the misunderstanding. We had classified Earth as a Type 7 civilization, suitable for resource development and gradual integration. You mean subjugation, Olivia corrected, leaning forward. The movement brought her closer to Kelter, who found himself noticing the intriguing complexity of her features. A matter of terminology, he replied, suddenly aware of an unusual tension between them. However, we recognize our error in assessment. Humans are clearly. He searched for an appropriate word. Exceptional. We're survivors, Ambassador. We've spent our history competing, cooperating, and adapting. When threatened, we become remarkably single-minded. As the negotiations continued into the lunar night, Kelter found himself increasingly fascinated by Olivia, by her intelligence, her unexpected humor, and the strange, inexplicable attraction he felt in her presence. Their species were drastically different, yet there was something compelling about her determination, her fierce protection of her people. During a particularly tense exchange about technology sharing, their hands accidentally touched across the table. Kelter felt an unexpected jolt of connection, and Olivia's momentary pause suggested she had felt something too. "Perhaps," she said softly, after a moment's silence, "we should continue this discussion more informally. There's an observation deck with an excellent view of Earth. It might provide perspective." Later, standing before the vast window showing the blue-green sphere of Earth, Kelter found himself sharing stories of his homeworld, while Olivia described Earth's diverse cultures and landscapes. The formal barriers between diplomat and adversary began to blur. "Your species terrifies the Confederation," Kelter admitted, standing closer to her than protocol would advise. "And yours tried to enslave mine," Olivia replied, yet her voice held no hostility. "But perhaps there's another way forward, one where we learn from each other rather than fear each other." As they stood together, watching Earth rise over the lunar landscape, Kelter realized the diplomatic mission had become far more complicated than he had anticipated, and not merely because of interspecies politics. Technological Tango Chief Engineer Daxon hissed in frustration as he examined the quantum stabilizer. 3 weeks ago, this technology had been exclusive to the Confederation. Now, humans had not only replicated it, but somehow improved its efficiency by 11%. "Impossible," he muttered, his scaled fingers tracing the modified components. "Not impossible. Just improbable," came a voice from the doorway. James Rodriguez, the human engineer assigned as his counterpart, entered the shared laboratory aboard the International Space Station. The facility had been rapidly expanded using a combination of human ingenuity and Confederation technology as part of the tentative cooperation agreement. "Your species shouldn't be capable of understanding quantum harmonics, let alone enhancing them," Daxon said, unable to keep the annoyance from his voice. James smiled, a gesture Daxon still found disconcerting. "We've been theorizing about quantum mechanics for over a century. We just needed to see a working example to bridge the gap between theory and application." The human approached, standing beside Daxon at the workbench. Their proximity sent an unexpected shiver through Daxon's sensory ridge. He had been working with James for weeks now, and these strange responses were becoming more frequent, an unwelcome distraction. "Look," James said, pointing to the modified stabilizer, his arm brushing against Daxon's. "We reversed the polarity of the neutron flow and introduced a carbon nanotube matrix." "Simple, really." "Simple?" Daxon sputtered. "That approach contradicts standard quantum engineering principles." "That's your problem," James replied, his dark eyes meeting Daxon's compound ones. "You've been following the same principles for too long. Sometimes you need to forget what you know and try something completely different." Despite his irritation, Daxon couldn't deny the effectiveness of the human modifications. And more troublingly, he couldn't deny his growing fascination with James himself, with his unorthodox thinking, his boundless enthusiasm, and his strangely appealing physical form. Over the following days, their collaborative work intensified. They developed a new propulsion system that combined Confederation spatial folding with human theoretical physics, creating something neither civilization had achieved alone. During a late-night work session, with the Earth glowing blue through the station's viewport, James explained his latest idea while sketching on a tablet. He sat close enough that Daxon could feel the human's body heat, a sensation both alien and increasingly pleasant. "You're not like other Confederation members," James said suddenly, setting down his tablet. "You actually listen to my ideas, even when they sound crazy at first." Daxon's scales rippled with embarrassment. "Your ideas usually are crazy, but effective." James laughed, the sound sending another peculiar sensation through Daxon's nervous system. "I'll take that as a compliment. You know, I was terrified when they first assigned me to work with you. But now—" Their eyes met, and Daxon felt his respiratory rate increase. Now I think we make a good team, James said softly, his hand moving tentatively toward Daxon's. Maybe even more than that. The implications sent Daxon's mind reeling. Interspecies attraction was not unheard of in the Confederation, but it was rare and often viewed with suspicion. Yet as James's fingers gently touched his, Daxon couldn't bring himself to pull away. "This is highly irregular," he whispered. "Humans specialize in irregular," James replied with a smile. "And from what I've seen, the Confederation could use a little more irregularity." As their unlikely connection deepened, so did their technological collaboration. Together, they created innovations that startled both human and Confederation scientists. Their relationship, like their inventions, represented something entirely new in the galaxy unexpected, theoretically impossible, yet undeniably real. Battlefield. Ballet Commander Zila crouched behind the remains of her tactical vehicle, plasma rifle clutched against her armored chest. Around her, the battlefield, once a verdant forest in what humans called Bazil, smoldered with the aftermath of clashing. "Technologies. Status report," she hissed into her communicator. "Southern perimeter breached," came the strained voice of Lieutenant Kresh. "Humans using modified gravity disruptors. They've somehow made them portable, Commander." Zila cursed under her breath. The Confederation High Command had rejected the peace negotiations, sending a full battle fleet to subdue Earth once and for all. It was supposed to be a straightforward operation overwhelming force against a still developing species. Instead, it had become a nightmare. She peered over her cover, tracking the movement of human soldiers through the trees. They moved differently. And Confederation troops less organized, but more adaptive, constantly changing formations and tactics. A flash of movement caught her eye. A human commander, directing her troops with quick, efficient gestures. Commander Prisha Patel Zila had studied her dossier. Former tactical specialist, now leading one of Earth's most effective resistance units. Their eyes met across the battlefield, a moment of recognition between equals. Zila felt an unexpected surge of respect for her adversary. The moment shattered as artillery fire erupted around them. Zila's transport exploded, sending her tumbling into a ravine, pain searing through her side where shrapnel had penetrated her armor. She awoke to the sensation of her wound being treated. Opening her eyes, she found herself staring into the face of Commander Patel. "Don't move," the human said calmly. "The nanomeds are still sealing the injury." Zila tried to reach for her sidearm, only to find it missing. "Why are you helping me?" Prisha's expression remained neutral as she applied a bandage. "Because I'm not a monster. And because this war is pointless. Your species started it by resisting classification," Zila said, though the words sounded hollow even to her. "Your species started it by assuming you could own us," Prisha countered, her hand surprisingly gentle despite her words. "But I think we're both smart enough to know this can't continue." Around them, the sounds of battle had faded. Night was falling, bringing a strange quiet to the forest. "My unit has been cut off," Prisha explained, sitting back on her heels. "Yours too, from what I can tell. We're behind both lines now." Zila assessed the situation. "So we're enemies trapped together. Or we're two soldiers who have an opportunity to talk without our respective governments interfering," Prisha suggested. She offered Zila a water container. "Your choice." Throughout the night, as they waited for extraction, they talked. Zila learned of Earth's history, its countless wars and hard-won peaces. Prisha listened to tales of the Confederation's expansion across the stars. Despite themselves, a connection formed, respect evolving into something more complex. "Your species. Fights like none we've encountered," Zila admitted as dawn approached. "Individually adaptive rather than collectively coordinated. While yours has technology we can only dream of," Prisha replied. She hesitated, then added, or could dream of until recently. In the growing light, Zila studied Prisha's features. There was a strength there, but also a weariness that mirrored her own. This war cannot be won, Zila said finally. Not by either side. I know, Prisha agreed. The question is whether our leaders know it too. When extraction teams finally located them, something had changed between the two commanders. As they prepared to return to their respective forces, Prisha held out her hand. Perhaps next time we meet, it won't be on a battlefield, she said. Zila took the offered hand, feeling the warmth of human skin against her scales. I would like that, Commander Patel. Their parting held the promise of a different future one. Neither had imagined possible before their unexpected encounter. New Galactic Order historian Morrow adjusted his recording device, ensuring it captured every detail of the historic ceremony unfolding before him. The Grand Council chamber of the newly formed Galactic Alliance gleamed with representatives from Pareth. 100 worlds, but all eyes were fixed on the central platform where the final signatories approached the Treaty of Soul. Never in my 4 centuries of life, Morrow dictated quietly, did I imagine witnessing a fundamental restructuring of galactic civilization prompted by a species that achieved spaceflight mere decades ago. The human delegation, led by Chancellor William Dlovu, moved with quiet confidence. Beside the Confederation's Supreme Archon, they seemed physically unremarkable. No natural armor, no enhanced sensory organs, nothing to suggest their revolutionary impact on the Galactic Order. Yet, in just 3 years since first contact, humans had transformed everything. From his privileged observation point, Morrow could see Ambassador Kelter and diplomat Olivia Reyes standing close together, their formal attire doing little to disguise their now well-known personal relationship. They had become symbols of the new era, controversial to conservatives on both sides, inspirational to progressives. The Treaty of Soul, announced the mediator, marks not the conquest or subjugation of any world, but a recognition that diversity of thought and approach strengthens us all. Morrow's gaze shifted to the technological delegation, where engineer Daxon and James Rodriguez had just unveiled their latest creation, a propulsion system that had reduced interstellar travel time by 60%. Their collaborative relationship had sparked a trend of human Confederation engineering, partnerships that was producing innovations at an unprecedented rate. Most surprising to Morrow were the military representatives. Commander Zila and Commander Patel had somehow transformed from battlefield adversaries to the joint architects of the Alliance Defense Protocol. Their strategy incorporated both Confederation precision and human adaptability, creating a defensive framework unlike anything in galactic history. We stand today not as conquerors or conquered, Chancellor Ndlovu was saying, but as partners in an unlimited future. As the ceremony concluded, Morrow moved through the reception, recording snippets of conversation for his historical archives. Everywhere, he observed the same phenomenon: humans and Confederation members engaged in animated discussion, sharing ideas, challenging assumptions. Historian Morrow, called a voice. He turned to find Neria Voss approaching, accompanied by a human scientist he didn't recognize. Officer Voss, he acknowledged. You're looking well. Professor Voss now, she corrected with a smile. I've accepted a position at the new Interspecies Research Institute. This is my colleague, Dr. Takahashi. The human scientist nodded respectfully. Historian Morrow, your work on galactic cultural evolution is fascinating, though I believe recent events may require you to revise some of your conclusions. Morrow laughed, a sound that would have been unthinkable in the formal historical community. Before human influence. Indeed, my entire theoretical framework has been upended. The assumption that technological advancement follows predictable patterns has been thoroughly disproven, Neria finished. Humans remind us that evolution takes many paths, Later, as the celebration continued around him, Morrow found a quiet moment with former Admiral Thorne, whose failed conquest had inadvertently birthed this new reality. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when you entered the Sol system?" Morrow asked. Thorne gazed thoughtfully at the diverse gathering. "Never. I expected another routine acquisition. Instead, ... He gestured to where Chancellor Ndlovu was deep in conversation with the Supreme Archon, their body language suggesting genuine mutual respect. "Instead, we found equals," Morrow suggested. "Perhaps more than equals in some ways," Thorne admitted. "They've changed us as much as we've changed them." As the evening progressed, Morrow observed the various human confederation pairs that had formed, some professional, some personal, all transformative. Kelter and Olivia sharing a private toast. Daxon explaining something to James with animated gestures. Zila and Prisha reviewing security protocols with their heads closed together. In his final recording of the night, Morrow captured the essence of what he had witnessed, the true significance of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage lies not in their surprising resistance to conquest, nor in their remarkable technological adaptability. Rather, it lies in their capacity to form connections across seemingly insurmountable differences, to see potential allies where others see only enemies. In teaching the Confederation this lesson, they have transformed a millennial-old galactic power structure in mere years. Whatever comes next, the galaxy will never be the same again.